The Sign of the Chrysanthemum by Catherine Patterson. Chapter 11. Thief of Fortune. Gentle Akiko, they have destroyed you. Behind the lattice windows of Rokuju Avenue, just a few coins. If I could kill them all, I would. If I could free you, I swear to the gods I would. You know I cannot. But they will not get me, that at least I promise. I will use them as they have used me. I will snatch my fortune from their grasping hands. They will not crush us both. During the next few days, Muna went about his daily tasks at the swordsmith's with an efficiency which would have surprised him if he'd thought about it. Fukuji's orders, even his desires, were anticipated. Nothing was forgotten or left half done, but every job was completed beyond expectation. The boy worked with feverish intensity, his features immobile, his lips silent. At last, the inner storm subsided. His heart was silent too. It was as though, having made his decision, he must shove out any memory that might cause him reflection or pain and slam a heavy gate against any whisper of remorse. Muna did not watch the swordsmith at work in the courtyard, not with his eyes, but the boy was acutely aware of every stage of the grinding and polishing. The hilt, with its delicately filigreed guard, and the sheath, upon which a spray of chrysanthemums had been painted in gold leaf, had been delivered from the craftsmen entrusted with their creation. It would not be long now. 2 days before the end of the festival, the swordsmith stood facing the east and raised the blade toward the morning sun, as if to say, "See, O Amaterasu, what your son has brought forth from the fire and water." Then he called the boy to examine the finished sword. Muna gasped. He could not help himself. The slightly curved blade had been ground and polished so that 3 distinct hues gave back the radiance of the sun. Noon shone in the highly gleaming polish near the ridge and back of the sword. At the cutting edge, a grayish twilight, and between the two, an area like sunlight trying to pierce the snow clouds of a winter afternoon. Muna reached out for a moment under the spell of the flawless blade, but he caught himself and pulled back his hand. "Shall I take word to Muratani that the sword is ready?" The swordsmith nodded. "I have just the final engraving left. I have yet to settle on a suitable motto for this beauty. Tell him that tomorrow, by evening, I should have finished." Quiet exultancy rose within the boy. His plan was going even better than he had hoped. Muna walked quickly to the barracks, going out of his way to avoid walking past the intersection of Suzaku Oji and Rojoju Avenue. Had she taken the goldfish with her? Sternly, Muna rid his mind of thoughts that might weaken him. When he had power and a name to be reckoned with, he would return. The samurai Muratani did not try to hide his disappointment at the message Muna brought. "But I'd hoped," the guardsman said, "that the sword would be ready by the end of the festival." "My master regrets the delay." Although lying was a new skill for Muna, he was perversely pleased to see how easily his tongue took to it. On the other hand, neither you nor he would be satisfied with less than a perfect blade. By the end of summer, he is sure to have another made. Although he consciously inserted a knowledgeable dimension to his voice, one can never tell how long a blade will emerge from the final tempering, you know. Of course, Muratani agreed. Convey my regards. He slapped some coins into the boy's hand, as was his custom. This time, Muna did not hesitate to accept them. Until next month, then? Until next month. The boy bowed and took his leave. But I thought he was so eager for the sword. Fukuji tugged his beard in puzzlement at the boy's message that Muratani would not come to fetch the sword for another month or more. Oh, yes, his friend said he would come as soon as he returns. Did he say what the trouble on Mount Hei was all about? Muna had prepared for this question and answered it smoothly. The warrior priests. It is rumored that they are preparing another foray against the capital. So Lord Kiyomori has sent Muratani and some of his retainers to investigate. Those plagued priests, as if Genji and Heike did not bring us grief enough. Fukuji rose from the low table where he had been sitting, the sword before him, and placed the blade carefully into its sheath. But at least I have more time to think about the motto. Muna watched from the kitchen doorway as the swordsmith retrieved the storehouse key from under a loose stone. Then Fukuji opened the heavy door and placed the sword on a shelf inside the storehouse. It will be days before Fukuji discovers it is gone. By the time he misses it, it will be far away indeed, for, thought the boy with grim satisfaction, it will not occur to him that I might steal it. Clack, 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 clack. A lone watchman passed in the street, clapping his wooden blocks and calling out his mournful voice of night. It is the hour of the sheep. Watch for fires, watch for fires. Clack, 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 clack. He repeated his call as he went on through the empty streets. In the distance, a dog barked. Muna raised himself up on his elbows and listened to the steady breathing of the man on the pallet under the wall of swords. At last, the boy slid out from under the light summer quilt. He was fully dressed, except for his sandals. Keeping his eyes on the sleeping form, he crept out toward the kitchen. On the step, he stumbled. Thunk! There was barely a sound, but the swordsmith turned in his sleep. For a long time, Muna stood still as death on the stair. He tried not to breathe, but the beating of his heart sounded like a festival drum inside his ears. When, finally, it seemed that Fukuji was not going to move again, the boy stepped down and slid the door open, inch by inch, until he could slip out through the narrow opening into the moonlit courtyard. Muna dug under the loose stone for the key. Silently, he slid back the heavy bolt of the door and entered the storehouse. It was black as a grave and musty smelling, for there were no windows. By feel and memory, Muna located the shelf and patted its length until his fingers finally curled about the sword. The pulse in his temple thudded painfully now as he left the storehouse, relocked the door, put the key back under the stone, and stole out the courtyard gate into the street beyond. He had no sooner pushed the gate shut behind than a sharp sensation of cold went through his feet. It took him a moment, standing in the dark, to locate the pain, for at the time all his body functions seemed labored and painful. Then he knew what he had done. His sandals. He had left them at the kitchen door. He cursed his stupidity, but he dared not go back for them. Where he could get more, he did not know, for now he must make his way over the rough stone streets barefooted. It couldn't be helped. In the shadow of the gate, Muna loosened the sash bound around his tunic and trousers and slipped the sword down inside his trouser leg. Then he bound the sash again over both tunic and trousers. The sword bumped against his leg at every step, but at length he became accustomed to the pain in his feet and the thudding of the sword and found them oddly satisfying, like a pilgrim taking pride in his penance as he makes the itinerary of the shrines. But, he said to himself wryly, my journey is not a holy one. Even had there been no moon, he would have found the street of the ox dealers without difficulty. One simply, as the saying went, crossed Suzaku Oji and followed his nose. Every area of the city had its peculiar odors, but here the odor of the oxen and their droppings laced the stench of human poverty. Muna was not squeamish, but the nature of his mission, combined with the assault on his nostrils and the filth clinging to his feet, dragged his spirit to the edge of despair. But he did not turn back. How could he? He passed the fox shrine. One of the guardians was etched sharp nose and pointed ears against the moonlight. His heart stopped. This was the place.